Vicki, welcome to Bicester Heritage. Ahead of the auction on the 24th of September, I thought I'd bring you down here. We can try out some lovely snippets. What do you think that we've got on offer?
Well, we're here at Bicester Heritage, so you've got lots of lovely little industries to do with cars, but it's also an airfield.
Right.
So I'm going to go for helicopter.
No.
Learjet.
Not quite, no.
Car?
Now we're there, yes. So I've got 1,800 brake horsepower's worth of cars for us to play with today. Should we go and have a look at what we've got?
Oh, yes, please. Oh, it's red! Ferrari!
Yes, the Ferrari F12 Berlinetta. I thought you might like this one.
You are spoiling me because I actually did this at the car's launch about 10 years ago, and it's Ferrari's sort of answer to the next stage of the 599 GTB, which was their all-singing, all-dancing supercar. At the time, it was Ferrari's fastest production road car, faster than the car it replaced, and most importantly, more drivable. Shall we find out? Do come in. So, under the bonnet, front engine, we've got a 6.2 litre V12 with 730 brake horsepower.
700 brake horsepower. Oh.
And when I first drove this car, I was wanging around the hills outside Ferrari's HQ in Italy, and I concluded that you needed to either be a racing driver or a nutter to fully exploit the car because it was just so phenomenal.
So explain to me, are you a race car driver or a nutter right now? Bearing in mind I'm strapped in.
Straddling both a little bit. So 0 to 62, what do you think?
Oh, it's got to be low threes, yes.
Yeah, absolutely, 3.1.
It is an amazing sounding V12 soundtrack, isn't it?
The thing is, it's got 7 gears, right? And you want a big runway to be able to get all the way up to use those 7 gears.
That's like a lot of these modern supercars, isn't it? They are epic in performance.
Yeah.
Our roads are the limitations.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
But it's very comfortable. We're on a bumpy road right now, and I'm not feeling uncomfortable.
They have done a fantastic job of marrying a supercar into a GT car, because we in the cabin got a nice amount of room.
Yes.
And comfort, with a little bit firm, but you know,
it's not too firm. There's no crashiness.
No.
It's taking all of the bumps well.
Yeah.
It feels sturdy. They've got this lovely Alcantara lining everywhere. It's pretty.
What a place to be. This cabin, it just says you are in something rather special. You're not in a pimped up version of something smaller.
Yes. There's no silly colours. There's no brash. It's actually quite subtle. And I'm a big fan of front engine V12 Ferraris especially. I mean, I know maybe it's sacrilege, a mid-engine Ferrari is the heart of the beast, but they're just prettier with those long bonnets.
Yeah, and this car is still so pretty. If Ferrari released this today, I would still let my jaw drop and go, what a beautiful bit of kit.
I think it's one of the prettiest they've ever produced. I think the more modern ones have started to get a bit aero and almost complicating the design. This still looks like it's closer to that original car designer's penline, which is beautiful, and it's in Ferrari red, so this particular one stands out well. I'm a big fan of them in the T-dip blues and the greys, but this in red is equally as gorgeous.
Yes, here. So when this was new, it was almost £250,000. This particular one has done about 24,000 miles, so how much do you expect this to go at the auction?
I think we estimate this one about 135 to 165.
Okay.
So it's circa £150,000. I mean, that would seem to me like really good value for money.
Yeah.
Not because obviously £150 isn't an awful lot of money,
no,
but because it still looks brand new. It has everything that any car that's brand new has. I mean, I don't think it wants for anything.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get some of the older cars, it starts to feel a bit dated, or you feel like you've underpowered. This has everything you could need and more.
It's got as well some modern things such as the indicators on the steering wheel and the windscreen wipers on the steering wheel. Ferraris right now today, they've got so much on the steering wheel, but here
Yes.
You've got bits and it feels modern.
Well, I had a little secret. Before you got in the car, I did drive this to Bicester this
Cheeky
morning,
monkey.
and it did take me a little while to get used to the indicators, but it's very... it makes sense. It's why wouldn't you put them where your thumbs can control
Exactly,
them?
it's ergonomic. My muscles are doing very little work to get to the indicators,
So
whereas
when
a stalk,
Yeah.
it seems prehistoric these days. You have to take your hand off.
And of course, what we'll do is then you'll end up bashing your flappy paddles, and ultimately you don't want to wreck your change down or your change up. So it makes a lot of sense. It took me a little while to figure out how to work out the windscreen wipers, which are also on that steering wheel. But ultimately, that and a long drive, this car was beautiful.
Yeah. You've also got this lovely Manettino, which is Ferrari's special little switch that you can go from a wet setting to full-on traction control off when you're on a circuit, and it just gives the car different characteristics to suit your mood and the conditions of the road, which I love. It's adaptable.
It's a real favourite of mine. This. I mean, we drove the Speciale with Tom, who shan't not be mentioned because he didn't make it today.
Tom Exton.
But the Speciale was everything that had been more of a performance Ferraris, but similarly has this ability to soften the dampers and be very, very usable.
Yeah.
I prefer this, and bear in mind how well that's sold, but I could see myself, if I had that kind of money, driving this every day. It's a really usable Ferrari.
So good.
So good. My turn now. Let's have a quick look at what I bought along this McLaren SLR, Mercedes-McLaren SLR. It's 20 years old and it still looks brand new. 600 brake horsepower, but most importantly, just take a look at those doors. Vicky, come on, jump in. Let's have a crack at this.
So spectacular.
Isn't that just brilliant?
Oh.
It's worth the entry fee. And off we go.
Oh, so then the star of the Mercedes range, the SLR.
And it's that McLaren sort of twin that just makes it so much sexier to have.
That sort of sprinkling of
Yes.
Formula One, isn't it?
And it is. I mean, when they designed it, of course, it was at the time of all these massive supercar, hypercar era just starting to click in. But this was very much the sedate tourer, but with this whopping great big supercharged V8 in it.
And also, you really do feel like you're just stuck to an engine because that massive long bonnet is just pure power, and you're kind of like just gently strapped to it.
And I remember driving one of these in traffic in London once, and I remember that every time that I stopped in traffic, I literally had to hold the brake. It just wants to go. It just wants to lurch faster. There just seems so much power under the bonnet of this car. And it was, back then it was one of the first cars that was all carbon fibre.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And it's ultimately massively lighter than the SL60. Everyone will say, oh, it's an SL55 in drag. It's not. It's so much more than that.
Even pulling these doors down,
Yeah.
you would think, oh, I need to get my full-on muscle power on that. No, not at all. They are really light.
It is an amazing piece of kit, and it still looks as good today, I think, as it did when it was brand new. It's a lovely place to be.
Yeah. Now, when this was new, this was just over £300,000. What are you expecting this to go for on the auction?
Well, not far off what it was when it was new.
Really?
I mean, they have become very, very collectible, especially when, like this one, they have very low mileage. So this one is only, what are we talking, 3,337 kilometres from new. So it's about 2,000 miles from new.
That's mad, isn't it?
It's nothing. The chap, when he bought it, the guy who's selling it, the vendor, he bought it knowing it was going to be an investment, really.
Yeah.
And so he bought it, he's used it a few times, but ultimately it's been tucked away.
Yeah.
So that mileage has remained very, very low. And for that reason, it sort of, as with many modern classics, becomes very desirable because, this is 20 years old now, maybe 30 years in, suddenly it really will become something of the past.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen one for many years. They are so rare on the roads.
And what are your thoughts, coupe over convertible?
Well, yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Problem is, it's these doors. And
The doors, that's it.
It's
the glamour of these doors, and it doesn't matter if you turn up in a supermarket or a 5-star hotel.
Yes.
Your entrance is jaw-dropping.
And the thing is, we are now driving in the great British summertime, of course, in absolutely
Tipping it down.
pooning it down with rain, and I feel ultimately very confident.
Well, the grip, this car has grip.
And also, of course, so famed for that big air brake at the back. It stops like nothing other of its time.
Yeah.
I do remember Clarkson doing a test with it and doing 120 miles an hour with the normal 60 mile an hour test, and braking in the same distance as with the highway code.
When it comes to ride, it is definitely on the firm side, but that's what you need in a sports car. But then there is a certain amount of compliance to make it a GT car. So I feel like we've got quite a lot of space.
My only complaint, having driven a few of them, is I think
you.
sometimes the seats could have been a little bit more gentle.
Yeah,
because the seats ultimately they're very well hugging as a sports car, but if you use it in sort of a GT mode, you probably could have done a little bit of cushioning.
Yeah.
Again, probably moot point now. I don't think anyone's going to take this to the south of France and back.
Oh.
But still, it's very SL-like in its drivability.
Yeah.
I don't feel overwhelmed by its size. I mean, but the nice little things, like when you look down the bonnet here and you've got those vents, and then you've got the wing mirrors that pop out and make it feel really, really special.
And the starter button, my gosh.
It's a very Top Gun.
Oh,
just as very
Top Gun,
topical,
James
isn't
Bond,
it? Yeah,
everything that.
Absolutely.
Why can't every starter button be under that?
I think they all should be, shouldn't they?
They should.
It's one of those strange things that people didn't adopt enough of. I mean, values for these now, I think if you can get one under £300,000 with low mileage, it's probably a good collector's pick.
Yeah.
It's never really depreciated. I don't remember seeing them dropping below 200 at all. So,
how do you feel on the road? Do you feel wide for UK?
It doesn't feel as bad as I mean, they are quite wide cars, but it gives you a fair sense of security. Again, if you've driven SLs, it feels very similar in that respect. The funniest thing about driving SLRs I've learned is that you always feel like you've got an immense amount of torque.
Yeah.
At any given time, that if you sneezed, you might find yourself in the hedge. So how fast do you think this was 0 to 60?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I'm going to go, I don't know, somewhere between 3.5 and 4.
I think it's spot on. I think it was 3.8 and then recorded 3.6. Obviously, always manufacturers getting a little bit genteel with their results.
Yeah.
Well over 200 miles an hour. Not surprisingly, top speed, to be honest with you. It feels like we could do that without much difficulty. And I think there was a quarter mile at the time of 11 seconds, which again, 20 years ago, that's something for production cars.
Yeah.
You know, 10-second cars are highly modified, so a production car, that's incredible. It's such a wonderful piece of engineering, that.
And I'm going to have to keep my door open though because it looks so spectacular. But what is that noise?
Oh, it's Dan. What is this?
This is a 2015 Aventa Barchetta coming into auction 24th of September up here at Bicester Heritage. Designed by the British Aventa Motor Company, headed up by Ant Anstead. It's got a fiberglass body fitted with a Chevy LS3 engine producing over 450 brake horsepower. So it's a very quick car, light, agile, a really good looking car as well. It's been designed with the 50s sports car in mind, and it would certainly be fit in the Targa Florio, the Mille Miglia of its era. A really good looking thing, and offered at 30 to 40,000 seems like good value to me.
Well, that is just a tiny taste of all the wonderful machines we've got on offer at the auction here at Bicester Heritage in Oxfordshire on September the 24th. We have got open days on the Wednesday, Thursday and Friday beforehand, so please come and see us and the cars.
And for all of you watching us on socials, please do remember to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, and of course do follow us on Instagram at Historics Auctions. From us here, from the lovely Bicester Heritage, we look forward to seeing you on the 24th.